What is going on? The catch. Fam, hope you guys are doing fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, week 14 of the fantasy season. It's here. Whether we're ready or not. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot on the line. We have some incredible matchups coming up in this Sunday slate, Monday Night Football, of course, as well this week. But we got a lot on the line. It's make or break it time. A lot of you guys have to win to get in. A lot of you guys trying to secure number 1, number 2 seed. Some of you guys just trying to have a chance. Maybe need some losses out there. Have some scenarios that need to go in your way on top of a win. It is a big week here in week 14 of what has been an incredible 2025 fantasy football season. So you guys know what we need to do. We're going to go through all your guys' fantasy football questions, whatever you guys have, starts, sits, who's out there on the waiver wire, injury updates, lineups, whatever you guys need, weather updates. We do have some games tomorrow with not the best weather, specifically the Colts Jaguars. But yeah, we got a lot to get into. So hop in the live chat. Let me know how you guys are doing. Let me know how the weekend is going. And we're a week away from the fantasy playoffs, baby. So let's do it. And just remember, at this time of year, you know, the calls are always close. Make sure to trust your gut. Don't overthink it. And make sure to try and pull from as many resources as you guys possibly can. And that is my warning. If you ask me a fantasy question and I'm the reason that you don't make the fantasy playoffs or losing the fantasy playoffs, don't hate me. You know, I'm doing my best out here, and any other fantasy football content creator, whatever platform they are on, I'm sure they are also doing plenty of research, doing the best that they can to help you. So just remember, at the end of the day, nobody really knows. And if I did know for sure, I would just be loading up some bets on FanDuel. But always here to do whatever I can to the best of my abilities to help you guys have a successful fantasy football season, which I hope I have for majority of the year. And always here to do whatever I can to help you guys dominate through the fantasy playoffs. And, you know, kind of like a lot of the games in real life right now have huge playoff implications for the NFL. Week 14 of the fantasy season is basically playoffs for a lot of you guys. Like, you're in playoff situations, right? Got to win to get in. So let's get into it. Hop in the live chat. Let me know what you guys got. I will be in there in just a second. Let's run through the news very quickly here. Jaden Reed is expected to make his return for the Green Bay Packers tomorrow against Chicago. So definitely will be implications. I'm not anticipating like a huge shift in volume in the passing attack here for the Packers, but Jaden Reed will certainly impact things. And I don't know, I kind of felt the same way with Watson, but in his first game back, like, you know, he got a few targets right off the bat in this Matt LaFleur system. I mean, sorry guys, anything really goes. But yeah, Christian Watson, his first game of the season, at least had 4 targets, so kind of a big one down the field. So we'll see how it goes, but I don't think if you're like starting Watson or Dobbs, you need to necessarily panic just yet. Omarion Hampton expected to make his return on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. So I would say if you own Omarion Hampton, you've been holding him this long, go ahead and play him. Kamani Vidal, I don't think is going to really have a huge impact there. Kenneth Walker has been dealing with that glute injury. He's off the injury report. Roma Dudze is out, considered week to week with a stress factor in his foot. Not that he was, you know, being productive as of late anyways, but that's a big one. Luther Burden, if he's out there, I think is a okay flex option, but Olamide Zacchaeus could be involved, and DJ Moore does move up overall this week for sure. Alvin Kamara is still out. Devin Neal will get the start. Drake Lundo is out once again. Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, and not ready for week 14, but they should be ready soon, which will help that Bucs offense. Jaden Daniels will play against the Vikings. T. Higgins clear concussion protocol. He will be good to go against the Bills. Trey Benson is still missing. If anybody knows where he is, please let us know. But Bam Knight should be a solid start. Maybe not solid. Like, he's playing the Rams. Okay, desperation start. Marvin Harrison Jr. out again. And that's about it. So lots to break down there for sure. For some of you guys, definitely some big implications. So, all right, let's not wasting time. Let's hop right into the chat. What's going on, Dakota? Good to see you. What's up? What's up? All right, what we got here? T-Law, Taylor, or Herbert? Man, so initially I was pretty high on T-Law going into this week. It's crazy that Tyrod Taylor's certainly up in the mix here, but yeah, I'm a little worried about the fork, and I really try not to worry about weather. You guys know that I'm not really somebody who overall like puts too much stock into the weather on a week-to-week basis. I think it's something to pay attention to. But yeah, the weather for this is like, so we're looking at a 77% chance of rain during the Colts Jags game. It is in the early window. Rain showers, comfortable temperatures expected for Sunday's AFC South. Wet conditions could lead to turnovers, light wind. So I don't know. Sometimes these rain games not as good for the passing attack, but there's so much on the line in this Colts Jags game in terms of playoff. I mean, whoever wins this game is the top of the AFC South, right? And the Texans still on the outside looking in on the division, and they play the Colts twice on the season left. So it's a huge game. It's basically a playoff game, right? So I don't know. We know it's going to rain that game. That's it. Every other game should be fine. We might get a little bit of rain in the Saints Bucks, but nothing too bad. And Titans Browns might have some snow. I don't really think that's going to impact too much. Like, if anything, it'll probably help Quinshon Judkins. It's like the only startable player in that game. Bengals Bills also a chance of snow, but like I don't think either of these games are expecting like enough snow to where it's going to be an issue or anything. But that Bengals Bills game will be very cold as well. Anyways, sorry, Colts Jaguars. Bear in mind this game will have rain. And so I am a little bit lower on T-Law than I was initially going into the week. But we look here, the Jaguars, 24th overall, bottom 10 unit in terms of fantasy points allowed to opposing. I'm sorry, wrong team here. The Colts have been a little bit better than you might think. 12th overall in terms of fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So not particularly a great matchup. But the Colts have been weak against the wide receiver and tight end position. So I will still take that at the end of the day. So I think it's a very safe floor with T-Law. He's kind of who I prefer still. I don't particularly see like a higher ceiling for Herbert because the offensive line is so banged up. This Philly defense still has a very good pass rush. They're good enough against opposing wide receivers. Like I don't know. He could be in a way limited. I know it's not his throwing hand that's hurt. I think Tyrod Taylor's like a perfectly fine streamer, but I think I would just go with T-Law here. So sorry, that seemed like a bit of a convoluted answer, but yeah, I'm not starting Jaden Reed right out of the gate, right off of injury. I'm too risky for me. Too many pass catchers in that offense. Dontayvon Wicks came back to earth this past week. Watson's been very solid. Dobbs still has like a safe floor. They want to run the football first and foremost as well. So, I'm not starting Jaden Reed right out of the gate, but yeah, like I said already, I mean, in this Matt LaFleur system, anything can go. Anyone can get involvement at any point in time. Gatson or Andrews, I'm definitely going Andrews here. I mean, Gatson just hasn't done anything really in the past couple of weeks. And like it's not a good matchup for him. The Eagles, I have pointed out their weaknesses throughout the course of the season and, encourage you guys at times to not be afraid of them, but they have been consistently good against the tight end position, fourth fewest fantasy points to tight ends, only 420 receiving yards allowed to tight ends on the entire season. That is the second best in the NFL, only 3 receiving touchdowns allowed. That's tied for second best with quite a few teams. But yeah, they're only allowing about 9 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. We flip it. We look at the Steelers. They've just been awful. 765 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns, 15.8 fantasy points per game allowed to tight ends. And once again, this is the other, like one of the other really big matchups of the week, where whoever wins that game is atop of the division. So huge game for the Ravens. They're at home. I'm not like counting the Steelers out, but they did not look great this past week against the Bills. And, I know this past week we saw more involvement out of Isaiah Likely than maybe some Mark Andrews owners were anticipating, because it was such a good matchup against the Bengals. But he still had 6 targets. He still has seen 5 or more targets in 3 of the last 4 games. So I like Mark Andrews a lot this week. I think he's a really good start. Plus, he just got the extension. Like, I don't know, maybe Lamar will be looking his way in the game. They can celebrate. All right, we got JJ, Collins, or Sutton. This is tough. These are all very good options here. I think they all have actually really good floors this week. I like JJ this week. I think it's really hard to just flat out sit JJ. I think it's also probably difficult to start JJ, but he should be better with McCarthy at quarterback. Justin Jefferson, when you start to break down a couple things, this is funny because it'll be in the video that comes out in the morning or late this evening, however you want to look at it. He's 7th in total targets, 8th in route participation, 7th in air yards. He's still top 10 in receiving yards and receptions on the season. Number 3 in unrealized air yards, which is a really common metric to rank high in when your quarterback sucks. He only has 2 touchdowns on the season, which is really, really hurting, but he's still number 9 in first read target share, 12th in first read targets. Like, he's still ranking pretty high in some metrics that should resemble a better fantasy season. It's just that, the quarterback play has been so bad on the season. So there is still hope for JJ. And I talked about this in the video that came out yesterday, right? Like, he's got an incredible. I still am okay with JJ. I really like Sutton this week. It's a great matchup. It's a good matchup schematically. The Raiders 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. I really liked Sutton last week. He did come through in that game. And I do worry on a week-to-week basis with that Broncos offense. Like, anybody can get the involvement, right? We've seen Pat Bryant now start to get involvement. Evan Ingram got involvement this past week, right? So I do worry about that. And while I do like all the options here, and I could easily see any of these guys outscoring each other, I would probably just start Nico Collins. He's been very solid, 21.5 or more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. And in the game where he didn't do a whole lot, that was against Buffalo. And that was more of like a play defense, run the football. Davis Mills at quarterback. And on top of that, Buffalo has been pretty stout, top 12 in terms of fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. And the Chiefs have not been bad, but they have kind of slowly moved back a little bit, 14th overall. I guess if I'm going to compare Buffalo there, it's not really fair, but I don't know. A lot on the line here for the Texans and the Chiefs in this matchup, so I do anticipate it being relatively high scoring. Plus, you look over the last 2 weeks, okay? Something I'm trying to pay a lot more attention to is not just these numbers, metrics on the season as a whole, but over the last 2 weeks and over the last 4 weeks, right? So if we look over the last 2 weeks, the Chiefs have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. We look over the last 4 weeks, they've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. They have not been playing well as a secondary as of late. So I really like this spot for Nico Collins. Once again, I could see any of these guys outscoring each other, but I'm going to go with Nico. Must-win game for the Texans, must-win game for the Chiefs. I do like JJ. I do like Sutton. But Nico, similar floor with those guys, but a higher ceiling, in my opinion. All right, Flex 1, Judkins, Harvey, Myers. Yeah, I like all these guys here, too. Oh, man, this is tough. I really like Jacoby Myers this week. It's a great matchup against that Colts secondary, who, we look on the season here. Bottom 10 unit in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, over 1,900 receiving yards allowed, 10 receiving touchdowns allowed to the position as well. They're bottom 10 in the last 4 weeks. They're bottom 10 in the last 2 weeks in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. And Myers has been on fire. A touchdown in the last 2 games, 15 or more fantasy points in the last 2 games. But, I mean, this is another offense where, like, week to week, I mean, like, Parker Washington's questionable. Brenton Strange is getting volume. Brian Thomas came back this past week, only had 3 targets, but still, they could spread the football around in any way, shape, or form. I do feel confident Myers is the wide receiver 1 here, but they could. And once again, we have, bad weather looming in this game. I think Judkins is very safe, and I do like him against the Titans defense, which has not been good against running backs on the season as a whole. But once again, this Titans defense has been sneaky good over the past 4 weeks, right? They have allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points to running backs. They've been sneakily pretty good. And over the last 2 weeks, the 12th fewest. So better, not like outstanding, but, their overall ranking 20th against the running back position. They have climbed up. They're like a bottom 6 unit for quite a few weeks there, and they have improved. So there's that. I think I got to go RJ Harvey, though, with all things said. And this is another scenario I could see any of these guys outscoring each other. I do like all the options here. But, man, I just think that Harvey is going to continue to get, all the inside the 5 carries, essentially. I mean, he wasn't super efficient running the football against the Commanders this past week. But this is one of those games where the Broncos are going to want to come out here, win in I think, high-scoring fashion against a divisional opponent that kind of embarrassed them on Thursday Night Football, although they won that game. It was like it just was an awful game for the Broncos. And once again, the Broncos want to be one of these dominant teams that have a chance to be the number 1 seed in the AFC right now, kind of close to the right next to the Patriots. So I don't anticipate them taking the foot off the gas anytime soon. And this Raiders run defense has they've gotten worse and worse as the season has gone on. Bottom 12 unit in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. But once again, more specifically, we look over the last 2 weeks, they've given up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs and 5 touchdowns to running backs in that stretch. So that is the most touchdowns allowed by the running back position in the NFL over the last 2 weeks. So I love this spot for RJ Harvey, another player who will be in the video that'll come out this morning. And man, I really like Myers this week. I think Judkins is very solid, but I will go Harvey. Kenneth or RJ? I'm going to go RJ again. I do like Kenneth Walker a lot this week, and I kind of worry with Kenneth Walker that sometimes I get suckered in here, and like the problem with Walker is his upside is capped because Charbonnet's in the mix, but it's a great matchup, and Walker is seeing a higher percentage of snaps and touches. But, they'll throw Charbonnet in there and he'll score a touchdown or whatever. But, yeah, I'm going to go RJ. I do like him more than Kenneth. Strange or Waller? I will go Brenton Strange here. I do like Waller this week. I don't know if he has a tremendous amount of upside, but I do like him. Strange is in a great spot. The Colts have struggled against tight ends. 5th most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends on the season. This has been kind of a soft spot for them overall. Big game. I know the weather. I'm going to try not to overthink the weather in the game, but it is a factor. But yeah, I'm going with Brenton Strange. And I do like Darren Waller, but like Waller, was it next week he plays the Bengals, or is it the week after? Well, he gets Pittsburgh, then Cincinnati. So those are 2 very good matchups for tight ends. So I feel better about him there. But this week, I'm going to go Brenton Strange. By the way, if you guys have questions you're waiting on that are in the YouTube comment sections on any of this week's videos, I will be clearing those in the next 24 hours as well. So I'm not ignoring you guys, I promise. All right. What's up, Ghost Hunter? Good to see you, bro. Metcalf, Dobbs, or Higgins? Yeah, that one's close. That one's close. And I think I'm kind of out on Metcalf here. It's not like a bad match. I mean, come on, Metcalf can always do something. But I just, what's the real upside? I think Jaden Higgins is very sneaky. But even with him being kind of sneaky, I don't think the upside is incredibly high. And I do like Dobbs. I do. It's just, once again, like, how is this volume exactly going to shake out for the Packers? It's tough to say. Like I think all these guys are like, they're just not high ceiling plays. It's either Dobbs or Higgins for me, and Dobbs does have the better matchup, but I think that the stress of the Chiefs will be on Nico, and we already discussed, I mean, that secondary late, so, um, I it very close, very, very close. Whoever you like better between Dobbs or Higgins, technically Dobbs has the, better matchup, so you could go that way. My gut is actually leaning towards Jaden Higgins, though. I think that's who I would have in my lineup if I were you. And he's been solid as of late. All right, Blazing 540, what's going on? Thank you for the super chat. Is Worthy droppable for Higgins, Mechie, Vele, or Reed? If CD is out next week, need a high upside play. Also, Burrow or Lamar. I mean, Worthy is droppable if you need to drop him, because I really think that, and I've been saying this for a few weeks, like with Worthy, he's matchup dependent. Like, you got to think of it this way. He played the team giving up the most fantasy points to wide receivers in week 13 in like a high stakes must win game, a lot of offense from both teams. And he did have 6 targets, which is not bad. Was on the field for 88% of snaps, which is like, those things are expected, but he only had 11.4 fantasy points. Like, the ceiling's just not there. He's not really like a red zone threat. That volume's going to Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce in the run game. But he is one of these players that can get loose, can be sneaky at any time against tougher defenses when the defensive to other positions. But I do think if you like, if you're not viewing him as somebody that you're going to start against teams like the Texans or the Chargers or the Broncos in week 17 that are tough secondaries, then just drop him. Like, they're on the road against Tennessee in week 16. They're probably going to light up the Titans, It's going to be a must-win game no matter what. That's about it for Worthy on the season. So, yeah, if you're not going to play him, you can move on here. All these guys here are fine replacements, but once again, I would go with Jaden Higgins. I just think that he provides a safe floor, and they're going to play the Cardinals in week 15. It's going to be a must-win game, so I'll go Higgins. You know this Texans defense is what it is. Jacoby Brissett's going to come out there and sling the football around. But everybody else here is fine. But yeah, I like Higgins the best. Most consistency has been shown. But yeah, let's cross our fingers for CD being back next week. Burrow or Lamar this week? I mean, man, I don't think you can really go wrong here. I do think that one thing that's worth mentioning here is that the Bengals defense has like been not too bad over the past couple of weeks, believe it or not. And I've said all season long, like, they don't play bad against wide receivers. So I don't know. This is a must-win game for both, or excuse me, either game that we're looking at here are must-win games for the Ravens and the Bengals, right? So it's tough here. Because I know how worried some of you guys are about Lamar Jackson, but I talked about it in the start sit video. I just have a tough time. Like, I want to give him one more shot here against the Steelers defense. I think Burrow, the safer floor, but the upside is with Lamar. So maybe look at your matchup. How do you really feel? Do you feel like you need the upside? Do you feel like you'll be okay with just a floor? I don't really have a problem risking things personally, so I would probably just start Lamar. And it feels like it's a bigger game with the Steelers and the Ravens. No disrespect to the Bengals, but those two teams are really at the top of the division. Where the Bengals, like, if they win, like, yeah, they're in the mix, but how deep are they really in the mix? And it's not particularly a great matchup. Well, no, the Steelers have moved back. I mean, it's a much better matchup for Lamar Jackson. mean, the Bills have given up the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Steelers 25th most. I got to say, I'd probably go Lamar. All right. Aaron, Mahomes, Brissett. Let's just go one by one here. I'm a little worried about Mahomes this week. And I never want to doubt Mahomes in like a must-win game. But this Texans defense, the fewest fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. I mean, they've only allowed 12 passing touchdowns, tied for second best in the league with 11 interceptions. I mean, it's just a tough matchup. It is in Kansas City, but man, I worry about Mahomes. I think if you have other options, you have to at least consider them. But with that being said, the Rams have given up the 7th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've only given up 16 passing touchdowns, which is much better, but still not great. But Jacoby Brissett's just going to all game long is just going to sling that football around. And I mean, the Cardinals have been eliminated from playoffs, but the Rams are going to come out here coming off a loss, putting up offensive points against that Cardinals defense for sure. Cardinals defense is okay. Man, that's tough because Mahomes is a quarterback too. Like, it's just one of these things. This is an introspective question. You have to answer it yourself. Do you think Mahomes is going to perform at home in a must-win game, season on the line, against the best team in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks? The Texans are allowing an average of 11.6 fantasy points to quarterbacks. It's still Patrick Mahomes, though. Do you think that he can withstand this and shake out enough fantasy points? Like, I don't think he's going to have I think the best case scenario here is like 20 fantasy points, I mean, in 3 of the last 4 games, he's had 18 or less. So I would lean Brissett, but I would not be surprised if Mahomes does show up. Hampton or Walker? This is close. I do like Walker. It's a good spot for him. We don't know how much Kamani Vidal we're going to see, but this Eagles run defense is not really intimidating. Bottom 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed on the season. Bottom 10 over the last 4 weeks, over the last 2 weeks, 6th most fantasy points allowed. So I kind of lean Hampton because Charbonnet will get the involvement. It is a good spot for Walker. I feel like Hampton has the upside, but Walker, a very safe floor. Rice or Michael Wilson? Wow. I'm going to start Rashee Rice. I like Michael Wilson a lot this week. I'm not going to bench Rashee Rice, though. It's a tough spot. We just went over it. And it's going to be different, of course, in terms of like rankings for wide receivers and all of that. And the Texans' 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. But man, I'm not benching Rashee Rice. No. So I'll go. I'm leaning Brissett. Call me crazy. Chat, Mahomes or Brissett? Who you guys starting this week? If you own Mahomes, how worried are you about this matchup against the Texans? Hampton or Walker? I'm going to go Hampton. And I'm going to go Rice over Michael Wilson. But I do really like Michael Wilson this week. All right, let me get caught back up. Thank you guys for the super chats. Sorry, guys, trying to go through every question as quickly as I can. I will get to every question, I promise. Just want to make sure I was somewhere. Okay, here we go. All right, Logan, this is where I was. Flex 2, Burden, Mason, Charbs, Walker. The safest play is just go Charbs. I mean, it really is. There's not a lot of upside involved, but both those guys will probably get you 10-ish fantasy points. I like Jordan Mason. I think he's fine, but Aaron Jones is going to get touches this week. It's a great matchup for them. But it's not like Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones, not comparable to Charbs and Walker. I do like Luther Burden this week, but it's not like the Packers are a good matchup, particularly as they've given up the 12th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. But he should get a bump, of course, with Adunze out. I know it's not really like exciting, but I just go Charbs and Walker. Strange, Fannin, or Johnson. I mean, I could see any of these guys outscoring each other. I would personally just start Britton Strange. I don't want to overthink the weather and matchup, being hurt by the weather, but I just go Britton Strange. Let's see here. Non-PPR, who do I flex? Rodriguez, Higgins, or Ibuka? Yeah, I do like Chris Rodriguez this week. And, I think we're going to have one of these weeks soon where Ibuka does pop off, especially with Godwin being back on the field and healthy and playing pretty well. And Mike Evans, McMillan returning at any point here. Those things will kind of ease the defensive pressure on Ibuka. But I'm going T. Higgins. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a tough matchup, but it's a big game for the Bengals, big game for the Bills. Give me Higgins. I'm not benching T. Higgins in general. So Pierce, A.D. Mitchell, Smitty, or Michael Wilson. Then I will go Michael Wilson. But if you want to go Devonta Smith, I'm not going to stop you. I mean, I will always be okay starting Devonta Smith. Like, I know he has fluctuation and can be up and down, but he's as solid of a start as you're going to get. And Alec Pierce not bad here too. It's not the greatest matchup, if I'm not mistaken, for Michael Wilson. Yeah, the Rams 18th. It's not great. It's not awful, but I'm going to go Michael Wilson here. Pierce, I do like. Smitty, I like. All those guys, I think, are above A.D. Mitchell, though. All right, Woody, Corum, or Rodriguez. I go Rodriguez because I think he's going to get the clearest path to number one RB volume here. Corum is like, he's still the RB2. I'm not going to have a Blake Corum, Kyron Williams rant, but it's still Kyron Williams there. I'll just say this. Like Sean McVay comes out and says, or whoever was it, the offensive coordinator, Sean McVay comes out and says that they want to keep Kyron Williams fresh for the playoffs. They basically have been doing that all season long already, especially if you guys are watching the Rams games. Like they are using Blake Corum, and it's not uncommon. Look at like the Falcons with Algier and Bijan. Like, it just happens in today's. Even like the Lions, they're in the season. They're involving Monty a little bit more than we had seen in previous weeks, and those are drastic comparisons, maybe, but Kyron's still in the RB9 in full PPR. So he's still a top 10 running back, and he's still seen 60% of snaps in every game since week 7, except for 58% of snaps or more in all those games. So, yeah, listen, I'm not worried about it. And I don't think that it's going to be enough for Blake Corum to have these huge ceiling weeks. And I think it's just a little bit too risky to go out and think that we can just start Blake Corum. But if you're desperate, I get it. I do get it. The matchup is there this week. I talked about Woody Marks in the start sit video. I just don't trust Woody Marks anymore. He's already had good matchups and hasn't performed in them fantasy-wise, and he gets the Chiefs 6 fewest fantasy points to running back. So I'll go Rodriguez. Another Saturday night fantasy. You know it. We're here. All right. Ghost Hunter, pick 2, Neal, Warren, Brown, Gainwell, ETN, Aaron Jones. I would just go with the players who've shown the most production. Chase Brown for sure. I mean, against the Bills run defense, you got to have Chase Brown in there. And then I do lean ETN. But if you want Tyler Warren being in the mix makes it complicated. I do like Aaron Jones this week too. Yeah, I mean, I go Tyler Warren, Chase Brown. But initially, I was kind of leaning ETN in there as well. So if you want to go with him over one of those players, I don't hate it. Rams or Jaguars defense. I'll go the Jaguars in the rain against Danny Dimes, who has been clean over the last 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong. But right before the bye week, we can't forget, he had 6 fumbles and 4 interceptions in 2 games. And this Jaguars defense is sneaky. So I don't know if they have a ton of upside, but I think they actually have a pretty good floor. You can always start the Rams, but that Cardinals offense, like, I don't know if it's going to matter how good the Rams defense is. They're going to try and put up 50 points no matter what. They might do it all in the second half of the game, but whatever. Judkins, Hampton, Monungai, Devonta Smith, pick 2 in standard. Judkins and Hampton in standard. Give me the running backs with the best potential volume. Burrow or the Brisket? I'd probably say Burrow for a floor. Brissett has the upside. Depends on how you want to play it. Monungai or Rodriguez? Yeah, it's tough with Monungai this week. I know that both him and DeAndre Swift are coming off a very good performance, but this Packers run defense is good. Our top 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. So I still think there's some risk with Monungai. And I kind of see this being a game with more passing volume for the Bears, but he's still very safe. I mean, a touchdown in 4 straight games, very good floor. I'll lean Monungai. Like, I like Chris Rodriguez, but if you have a proven asset, I think I'd rather start them. Are we still starting Watson now that Reed is back? Yeah, I'm good with Watson this week. I really like Watson this week. It's a very good schematic matchup for him. Stream Barner or Waller. You're really banking on a touchdown here either way, and either player could easily do it. I will lean Darren Waller because Atlanta has been really good against tight ends. Like, they've been having a very up and down season. I don't really trust that defense is good, but the one thing that they have been consistent on all year long is they've been very, very stout against tight ends. 8.2 fantasy points per game to tight ends. Only 43 catches, 465 receiving yards allowed to tight ends so far on the season. So they have given up the 4th fewest receiving yards to tight ends and only 3 touchdowns. So Barner can always get it done. But I'll go Waller. What's going on, Junior? Do not know to start between Pittman and Sutton. I lean Sutton just based on matchup, but I do think that Pittman is still a fine start, has a safe floor, can always find the end zone. Tough matchup against the Texans. He's playing the Jaguars. Sorry. Not as tough. I do like Pittman this week. My brain is like going back to last week with a couple of these matchups, these divisional matchups and whatnot for whatever reason. So I apologize. I did that with the Bengals and Ravens earlier too. It's still a much better matchup for Sutton. I always get kind of nervous with Sutton when he's coming off of a touchdown game because of how much they spread the football around. And he hasn't been he hasn't scored as many touchdowns this year as he did last year. I guess actually he's on pace for about the same amount of touchdowns. I worry like he just is coming off a game where he scored a touchdown. But I'll go Sutton. It's close. I do like Pittman though. Did I drop Higgins for Eagles defense for week 15? Who do the Eagles play next week? They play the Raiders. You have Chase, Igbuka, J-Mo, Myers, Seattle, and the Broncos. Well, let's look real quick here because the Broncos are obviously in play this week, but then they're going to get Green Bay, Jacksonville, and Kansas City. I don't really think those are going to be matchups where I feel crazy about starting the Broncos. And like I think the Broncos have a great defense, but if we're just focused on fantasy, they've had double digits this year against the Titans, Cam Ward, against the Chargers, fine, 10 fantasy points there, fine. Against the Bengals with no Joe Burrow, against the Jets, against Geno Smith. That's it. So like the one outlier is maybe the Chargers on the road. Outside of that, it's been like very, very bad quarterbacks and you're not looking at double digits in any other game. So, I don't think that the Broncos past this week are going to be a team that we really need to consider defensively. Than the Seahawks, you know, I've had more faith in them. Like they get the Colts, the Rams, the Panthers, the Colts, Panthers matchups doable here. Um, but once again, when we look at their double digit performances this year, Aaron Rodgers, Spencer Rattler, Kyler Murray, or I guess it was Kyler Murray in week 4. I don't even remember for the Cardinals. Cardinals quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, Cardinals quarterback again, this time Jacoby Brissett, and Max Brosmer. So while I do think they have a safer floor, once again, we're looking at double-digit performances against really bad quarterback play, and it's not the greatest matchup. So in other words, I would look to be dropping one of your defenses for the Eagles as opposed to a skill position player, even if you have depth. And then just keep in mind here, the Eagles, yes, they're in play for week 15, but then they get the Commanders with Jaden Daniels back and the Bills. You're not going to start them, and they're on the road in those 2 games. You're not going to start them in those games. Maybe the Commanders, but once again, the Eagles have not been a fantastic defense when it comes to fantasy this year. They're not awful, but they have shown up in some good places. The Rams specifically, and Stafford, Baker in week 4. But yeah, then we're looking at McCarthy, Jordan Love. We'll give them that game. We'll even give them the 8 points against the Lions. That was a solid performance. But that's about it. So yeah. All right. Yeah, I would look to drop a defense as opposed to Jaden Higgins here. Olave or London rest of the season. I mean, overall, it is Drake London. But in terms of like who's actually active right now and playing, Olave. And Olave's been very good this year. I had nothing against Olave. The upside is higher with Lindo. But yeah, I want both these guys on my team. Does Harvey have a good game against Vegas? They held Dobbins in check the first game. Yeah. I'm trying not to read too much into that matchup. It was like a sloppy Thursday night football game. I think this game will be a little bit different. And once again, over the last 2 weeks, the Raiders have given up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs and 5 total touchdowns in that stretch, which is the most of any team. And in that stretch, if I'm looking at things quickly here, because this is not in order, the 5th most rushing yards to running backs? No. 7th most. So still not good. So yeah, they've been good over the past couple weeks, and I like Harvey this week. Rams, Titans, or the Commanders? I'm not going with the Titans. I'm not. And really, like streaming against the Browns since Shedeur has taken over hasn't really worked. And I do like the Commanders. They're fine, but it's a risky play. I know I put them in the defensive video, but JJ McCarthy's back, which is better than Brosmer, and McCarthy has not been good, but I'm a Commanders fan, so I never expect anything out of this team. I would just go with the Rams. I mean, I don't love the matchup per se, but I will go with the Rams because they are the best defense here. Smoke of the Cat. What's up, bro? Happy holidays to you as well. Vele or Charbs at flex? Charbs for a floor, Vele for a little bit more risk, but upside. I don't want to get too caught up in chasing what Devon Vele did last week. If you have kind of a proven asset already, but it is a very good matchup against the Bucks. So he is a risky flex, but I just start Charbs personally. Titans or Washington. I mean, I would just go Washington. I just would not do Tennessee. I do not. I don't trust either of these teams. So I guess. I mean, they're both risky. Is this the This is two different people asking. Yeah, I don't like either of these teams, to be honest. All right, which three should I start? Kyron, Juckins, Ladd, Harvey, Brees, or Scary Terry? I'm starting Kyron. I'm starting Harvey. Oh man, a lot of good. I'd probably go Juckins for the safest four, but I really like Ladd still, and I really like McLaurin as well. Although the Vikings are good against wide receivers, so and Ladd, like the volume, it's always a mess with the Chargers. Got so many pass catchers. I'll go Kyron, Harvey, Juckins. Hunt or Bam? Neither are in a particularly good spot this week. So I will go Hunt, as I anticipate that game will be there'll be more on the line. I do think Bam Knight is like a good flex, but he gets that Rams. I mean, it's just not a good matchup for either guy. Best running back on waivers, Pollard or Pacheco? Pacheco, because he's not on the Titans offense. What's up, Chase? Pittman or Jacoby? I'm leaning Jacoby, but I do like Pittman a lot this week too. Monangai or AD Mitchell? I will go Monangai in the flex. Judy or Trey Tucker? That's a question of the night. Oh man. I'll go Jerry Judy. I guess that Titan secondary has struggled. Man, he has 3 or less catches in 3 straight games. 3 or less catches in every game except for one since week 7. Ugh. Random touchdown against the Jets. He had a huge game against the Jets. I mean, but I mean, like, it's not like Trey Tucker has done a whole lot either as of late. Yeah, he has 3 or less catches in every game since week 9, except for the game against Dallas, where like it made sense he would get involved against that secondary. He gets the Broncos. I'll just go Judy. I hate both options though. Why are those your options? There's got to be something out there. All right, what's up, Luis? Need one wide receiver, one flex. Well, Dunze's out, so you can't start him. So Reed, Franklin, Waller, Fannin, Monangai, and Sharps. I will flex Monangai or Charbs, whoever you like more. And I'll start Franklin at wide receiver. He's risky, but he has the matchup. Mahomes or Brissett? Oh, we got this one earlier. Would you start DJ Moore over Metcalf, Dobbs, or Higgins? Yeah. Sure. But they're all very close here. We went over this one earlier. I think DJ Moore right there in that same range as these guys. I would probably just start Jaden. I don't know. I'm kind of just I have one of these feelings about Higgins. I just like Higgins this week. So I would just start Jaden Higgins, but there's an argument for all these guys. All right, I see at the bottom of the chat, Mint Burden, not a Dunze. Burden's about as risky as Troy Franklin. But Franklin's in a better matchup. But both these offenses will spread the football around, use different guys. I'll say a safer potential floor with Burden, but Franklin has the upside. That's a tough choice there. I wouldn't trust Jaden Reed first came back from injury. That's a close one. Chat, what do you guys think? Luther Burden against the Packers, tougher matchup, or Troy Franklin against the Raiders, who saw a dip in production and volume this past week, but a much better matchup against the Raiders. Close. God, what's up? Frustrated with Hampton still being on IR. Why do teams play with injury reports? Well, is he off of IR yet? He's activated, so he's showing that he's on IR on like sleeper, maybe fantasy, but he's off IR. LeBron's who's winning our matchup. Probably not me. I'm above 500 in every league I'm in this year, and I've not been eliminated from the playoffs in any single league I'm in. But I do need, I'm in some good spots in a lot of leagues, but I'm in a lot of leagues where like I got to win. I got to have a couple things happen. I'm in a couple where I just need to win. But yeah, I haven't been eliminated. I'm in 17 leagues or whatever. So I will be eliminated from some of these. I'm not trying to say anything crazy here, but last year I made it in like 11 out of 18 leagues or whatever. So anyways, let's see. I do need to beat you. That's the Catch Fam League 5. So that's the 3 wide receiver league. Yeah, I got to beat you. And I need one of the 2 7 and 6 teams or both of them to lose. I don't know. I have a pretty weak wide receiver room in that league. I'm like stout everywhere else. And I do have JSN. But I don't know, man. Your team's pretty good. Mahomes, A-Chain, Barkley, Adams, Devonta Smith, Tucker, not great. Brenton Strange, Devin Neal in the flex. Could play Bam Knight. Yeah, I mean, it could be close here. I got Baker, Bijan, Kyron, Jason, but then yeah, Quinn Johnston, DJ Moore, Ertz, Worthy. Yeah, I don't know. I will say good luck to us both. May the best man win, but probably you. Never had it so good. Flex, half PPR flex 1, ETN and Buka Swift. It's Swift or ETN. I probably lean ETN, but I do like Swift still. Mando, Montana, Neal, Gainwell, Monungai, or Rodriguez. Also, Troy Franklin is a flex option. I would probably start Devin Neal. I got a good feeling. Well, no, I'll go Monungai. Monungai, Neal would be my order. Just those 2. Waller, Ingram. I'm going to go Waller. I just don't see Ingram replicating what he did last week against the Commanders. Like they figured out those underneath routes were going to just torch the Commanders all night, and they went back to it over and over. It was just embarrassing as a Commanders fan. But I will say this, the Raiders, I don't think they particularly have a great defense, but I've said all year long, they've just been quietly really good against tight ends. 3rd fewest fantasy points, only 43 receptions, 462 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns all season long to tight ends. And teams don't need to throw to tight ends because they're so bad against wide receivers. So I'll go Waller, but I don't think Waller particularly has a super high ceiling. Liga's non-PPR. What's up, Ray Gamer? Would you start Waller or Fannin this week with Kittle on bye? Yeah, I think Fannin is always in play. But the Titans is another team. Like they've just been quietly good against tight ends. 9th fewest fantasy points to the position. Fannin can always do something, but if he doesn't score, like there's not a ton of upside. He has 2 games on the season with double digits without a touchdown. In the last 5-6 weeks, he's only had double digits when he has scored a touchdown. I like Fannin, don't get me wrong, but Njoku, while it's not a ton of volume, still sees a okay amount of snaps, 49% or more snaps in every game this year except for week 6 against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, it could go either way. I don't want to get too sucked into like the Waller hype, but I think Waller's okay. I still think Fannin's okay. I'll go. I think Fannin will see better volume, but they're both touchdown dependent. So I guess I'll go Fannin. It's close. Which two would you start? JJ Sutton, Buka, BTJ. I will start JJ, believe it or not, against the Commanders and Sutton, just purely based on matchup. Lamar, Burrow, JD5. Yeah, I mean, that's tough. Any of these QBs can outscore each other. I will go Lamar. Good matchup against the Steelers at home. Huge game. I'm going Lamar. Browns are the Hawks. I'm going to go Browns. Give me the Browns against Cam Ward. But I do like the Seahawks a lot, too. Need upside, full PPR, Gainwell, Pirine, Waller. I think Pirine is actually kind of sneaky this week. And like he had 16 touches last week. Like with how productive Chase Brown was, who had 22 touches. Pirine had 16 touches. He did have a lost fumble too. And Buffalo's run defense is nothing worried about. But upside, I mean, upside probably Gainwell. Like with upside comes risk. With great power comes great responsibility, right? Spider-Man. If you want upside, Gainwell has the upside, but he is risky. All right, thank you for the super chat, Chad. And as always, guys, I'm getting through all the questions here. I promise. And I'm a little bit behind, but I will answer every question. So thank you guys for sticking with me here. Do me a favor, if you guys haven't done so already, hit the like button on the stream. It does help out the stream and the channel. Appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Let me answer your fantasy questions. All right. Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert? Man. I mean, this is essentially a must-win game for the Chargers. I am worried about, I mean, Herbert has 14.7 or less fantasy points in 3 straight games, and that offensive line is so banged up that the Eagles will understand that, and they will be able to apply pressure. Now, this game is a home game for the Chargers, but man, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, I think that Taylor is solid this week. The upside can't be above what he did last week, 21 fantasy points. It can't be above that. He gets Miami, and they have struggled against quarterbacks, bottom 10 against the position. Last 4 weeks, they're bottom 10. Last 2 weeks, they're still bottom 10. A little bit better, but still bottom 10. Call me crazy. I think I want Tyrod Taylor here based on everything that we look at. But yeah, this is still like, I mean, the Chargers, you know, if they lose this game, they still are at a 53% chance of being in the playoffs. If they win, they're at a 77% chance. So that's not too shabby there. They'd advance to 9-4. The Eagles, on the other hand, if they lose, 92% chance to make it. If they win, they're basically a 99% chance to make it, especially with that Cowboys loss. Lions and the Commanders, if they lose, I'm pretty sure they're eliminated completely from the picture. No, that's not true. If they lose, they have a 1% chance. I don't know how that works, but I basically they're out. So chat, let me know. Would you guys go Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert? I'm leaning Tyrod Taylor. Yeah. Eagles right there in the middle against quarterbacks, 16th overall over the last 4 weeks. 17th, so right there in the middle again. Over the last 2 weeks, not good. 24th, bottom 10. I just worry about that matchup. We know that, you know, in terms of the Eagles defense, what they can shape up, good defensive coordinator, still have good pass rushers, and that offensive line for the Chargers. I just worry here. And he like I said, he has not been productive in the last 3 weeks. And that's been the main reason why, that offensive line. So chat, give us your guys' opinion too. Taylor or Herbert? Everything's on the line. Ryan, Hall versus Harvey. I do like Brees Hall. I think Brees Hall is about as solid as you can get. But I will say, I mean, the Dolphins' run defense has really improved. We talked about this for a couple of weeks, and they've been one of the most improved run defenses. And actually, over the last 4 weeks, they've given up the second fewest fantasy points to running backs. Over the last 2 weeks, the fewest fantasy points to running backs. Remember, they came out the gate giving up like 49 points to to Jonathan Taylor in week 1. You know? Okay, it was only 12.8 fantasy points now that I look at it. But they got blown out by the Colts, and like that run defense was awful in September. They have to be the most improved run defense in the NFL. But okay. It was not that bad week 1. Anyways, I gotta go Harvey here. We've talked a lot about Harvey tonight. I really like him this week. I love the matchup against the Raiders. They've been one of the least improved run defenses. They've been really bad. 4th most fantasy points, most touchdowns to running backs over the last 2 weeks of any team. I'm going Harvey. I still think Brees Hall's solid, but yeah, I'm gonna go Harvey. Pick 3: Michael Wilson, Sutton, Scary Terry, and Mitchell. I would start Michael Wilson. The Cardinals will be playing from behind. No Marvin Harrison Jr. We know what that offense is going to do. I would start Sutton. It's a great matchup here. I know he just scored this past week, but I still really like him this week. And that Raiders secondary has not been good this season. And I would go Scary Terry. I don't particularly love this spot for Terry McLaurin. That Vikings secondary has been really consistent this year and very good against the pass, very good against wide receivers, but I trust him more than AD Mitchell. I think, AD Mitchell, John Mechie, we could see a fluctuation between the two at any point, and they're both worth rostering, but I would really only look to start those guys if you're desperate. I think if you have Michael Wilson, Sutton, and Terry, you're not exactly desperate. All right. Thank you guys for the super chat. Like I said, I will get through every question here. So I'm working my way through. Gonna speed through a couple of these after we answer this newest super chat. Like I said, do me a favor, guys. Hit the like button. It does help out the stream. And let me know how you guys are doing, man. Let me know how everyone's weekend is going. Let me know how things are looking in your fantasy leagues. How many leagues are you guys making the playoffs in? What type of scenarios are you in here in week 14? All right. Is Burrow a league winner? I mean, I think he's fine. I don't know if I call him a league winner. If you held on to him, like I think he's going to be a startable quarterback for the rest of the season. They face the Bills, tough matchup. The Ravens, good enough matchup. The Dolphins, good enough matchup. The Cardinals, good enough matchup. It's like nothing that really like stands out on paper. And actually, some of these teams, if I'm not mistaken, are quietly pretty good. Like the Ravens have improved against quarterbacks. They're 19th. It's not bad. It's not great. The Dolphins have struggled, 26, so bottom 10. And the Cardinals are the sneaky one, 10th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Like league winner, I'm thinking like a lot of like huge ceilings. I mean, if you like were really struggling at quarterback and dealing with injuries, and you got Burrow last minute off the waiver wire, like later in the season off the waiver wire, like, yeah, he could save your season, be a league winner. But like in terms of having like monster games, I think Burrow will be good. And last week was very, very promising. But I don't know if I will go as far to say like true league winner. Not sure if you watch a lot of film at all, but was seeing if you had insight on why Kyle Pitts has floundered out since his breakout rookie year. He could be their number one pass catcher rest of the season since London isn't close to coming back. Says they might hold him back. Was deciding to stash him or Aaron Jones. Yeah. I mean, with Kyle Pitts, I mean, I actually do try to watch a fair amount of film and or like certain channels that break down a lot of film. I think that's like a really like lost art in like the world of like fantasy football and sports gambling. If you guys, there are some really good channels that do just exclusively break down film, and I do like that. That's actually like a trend. There are channels that are starting to be really successful where all they do is break down film, and I think that is like something that will really help if you are trying to improve at fantasy football, for example. So I encourage you guys to find some of those channels out there. I watch the Quarterback School a lot, and there is a channel called, wow, it's sad that I don't even know what this channel is called. I was gonna say Film Catchers, but I think it's just like Film Watchers. It's on TikTok, but I mean, okay, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But he is incredible. Younger guy, really, really good. Extreme football knowledge. But the point I'm getting to is I don't really watch a lot of film on tight ends exclusively, unless they are like maybe younger guys for like dynasty purposes. But when it comes to Kyle Pitts, it's just been the coaching staff and the play calling and the offensive coordinators, and it's just been a player that's been essentially failed in terms of his usage. But still, when you break it down, like Pitts has been a top 15 tight end every year he's been fully healthy. Like he hasn't been that bad from a real life perspective. He just has not been good for fantasy. And he's still, I mean, like his talent hasn't been properly utilized. Bijan's isn't as good as Bijan has been and as productive. Drake London's hasn't been. I mean, it's just missed opportunity there with the coaching staff, I would say. And in terms of what you're saying here, Aaron Jones looked good in his return, has great matchups. I do agree. I would rather stash Aaron Jones. And I talked about this in yesterday's video. He has one of the best overall strengths of schedules. And regardless of position, the Vikings in general, getting the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Lions, have one of the best overall playoff schedules. The Lions is tough, except against a wide receiver position. But yeah, I would rather have Aaron Jones here. JD5 or the brisket? I probably go. I'll say JD5 for a floor. Jacoby Brissett for upside. But yeah, this matchup against the Vikings isn't entirely favorable for the passing game. I mean, ninth fewest fantasy points to quarterback. So I could see kind of like a Joe Burrow-esque game of last week where like the upside's not crazy, but JD5 should get you like 18 fantasy points. So if you want the upside, go with the brisket. And I would flex Sutton here. Vincent killing it in the Catch Fam League 3. Let's go. Defenses for playoffs: Jags, Eagles, Steelers, Rams. Have Broncos and Seattle. Yeah, I will say this. I mean, I think it's tough to drop Seattle. You want to play the Broncos this week against Geno Smith. But then past that, I would just be looking for a week-to-week basis. Like you can play the Eagles with extreme confidence next week as they are playing the Raiders, at home. The Steelers, while I don't trust that defense, they do play Cleveland in week 17. So that is definitely a play. I don't particularly love the Broncos through the playoffs. The Rams are just a floor play. I mean, they're at Arizona. The Lions are at Arizona this week. I'm sorry. The Lions at home, at Seattle, at Atlanta. Like Atlanta, sure, but outside of that, like it's not a ton of upside indicated there. The Jags will get the Jets, which is fine, but then they're at Denver, at Indy. I don't really love that, but they always have a good floor because they're so opportunistic in terms of turnovers. So I would just try to play it week by week, and I would say overall the safest play here is Seattle. Watson or Terry? I will go Watson for the upside, but Terry has a good floor, but I don't like the matchup against the Vikings. Nick, ready for the playoffs? Let's go. Good to see you, Nick. Texans or Commanders? Texans. I would just take the floor. I think they're safer. Shakir or AD Mitchell. I know Shakir was bad last week, but I'll take Shakir against In a very good matchup here, or at least a matchup that indicates that the Bills will need to throw the football. Vele or Burden rest of the season, it's close. We don't really have a large enough sample size. I'll say Burden just because the Bears are going to be in more competitive game scripts, but I do like Vele as well. QB Indiana next year for NFL. Today champion. Yeah, we'll see. I haven't checked the score since the first half of that game. What about Alabama losing today? But yeah, I mean, I do like Fernando Mendoza a lot. And I do think he will be a first round QB talent next year. Of course, you guys can watch my Dynasty content over on Dynasty Endgame, which I don't know if that's linked down below or not. It's linked on. Yeah, I can send a link in here. But yeah, I do like him a lot. Wow. Yeah, okay, this game is almost over. Too close game here. 13-10. We'll see. We'll see. Rams got upset by Carolina. Then they report Reston at Kyron. Yeah. They Sean McVay could be messing around here. Ladd or Warren? I'll go Ladd. I have a tough time benching Ladd unless the other options are like super solid. I do like Jalen Warren though. Vele, Burden, or Bam. Pick 2. I probably just bench Bam Knight against that Rams run defense, so I'll go Vele and Burden. Charb, Monungai, or Tootin? I'll go Monungai, but I like Charbs here too. What's up, Andrea? Good to see you. Should I drop Franklin and pick up Mitchell, Higgins, Godwin, Burden, or DJ Moore? You have Nico Sutton, Pierce, and Tet. I mean, there's going to be a lot of fluctuation with any of these wide receivers. We don't know how long Rome Odunze is going to be out. We don't know how that's going to impact Burden or DJ Moore. We don't know their exact volume. We know they're going to be in competitive game scripts. We know Godwin's got really good opportunity. He dropped that touchdown this past week. If he didn't, we'd probably be talking about Godwin as like a must start this week. But then Mike Evans going to return. McMillan could return. There's still Ibuka there. There's still Tez Johnson and Shepard and Otten. Bucky's back. They can run the football more efficiently. There's still Rashad White and Sean Tucker. Like, there's still injuries to the offensive line, and overall, it's a tough situation to read. I do like I think the most consistent player here is Jaden Higgins, and I think I might just be a Jaden Higgins fan, but you could see any of these guys outscore each other in any week is the main point. So it kind of comes down to who you like the best. And I think Franklin still has a lot of upside. Let's not overreact too much to last week. He could pop off this week. Then you're going to feel really bad if you dropped him. I need to flex Godwin, Gainwell, or Charbs. I'll say Charbonnet for the floor. Godwin if you want some risk, but upside. Pierce, Devin Neal, Charb, or Bam. Flex 1. I would just be boring and go Charbonnet. It's still a good matchup. The ceiling's not incredibly high, but the floor is there. Michael Wilson, Godwin, or Walker. I'm going to go Michael Wilson. But I do like the other options. Jerry for upside, I know, right? Waddle or Buka. I'll go Waddle. Genty or ETN. I'll go Genty. He's getting so much involvement in the passing game that I just have a tough time benching Genty. He's had 5 or more targets every game since week 9. 6 or more catches in 3 straight games. It's saving it. He's had 2.9 yards per carry or less in 3 straight games. 3.2 yards per carry in 5 straight games. 3.5 yards per carry in every game since week 6. And it's not entirely Genty's fault or anything, but the volume in the passing game is keeping him alive, and they're going to need to throw against the Broncos. I do like ETN a lot, though. Thank you, Juffy. Love having you guys. Love try to help you guys out in fantasy. Drop Vele for defense. Kansas City? No. Kansas City, not a great fantasy defense. No. JD5, Knicks or the Brisket? I think I'd probably just go Jaden Daniels. I still think his floor is very safe. It is a tough matchup, as we have discussed, but he's fine. I like Bo Nix, but it's like, once again, we're looking at a floor. Jacoby Brissett does have the most upside, so I somewhat worry about the Cardinals this week. It is the Rams defense. They're coming off of a loss. Pick one to bench: Ladd, Neal, Hampton, DJ Moore. I would probably just bench DJ Moore because, like, that this Ben Johnson system, they will spread the football around. We will see volume go to other players here. And if Odunze didn't get hurt, like, we wouldn't even be considering DJ Moore. So I think he's more of like a desperation play, or like if you were hurting, I think you get enough volume out of the other players listed that I would bench DJ Moore. Wilson or Watson, very close. I love both these guys this week. I'm going to go Michael Wilson, but I would not be shocked if Watson outscored him. Rest of season rankings: Sutton, Fields, A.D. Mitchell, Jennings, Flowers, Watson, McLaurin. Fields? Like Justin Fields? I'm going to do the ranking without Justin Fields. I don't think that was supposed to be in there. So Sutton, Mitchell. Is this Sutton Franklin? I'm trying to think of who else it could be. Like, who's a player that autocorrect got you that starts with an F? Sutton, A.D. Mitchell, Jennings, Flowers, Watson, McLaurin. I'll go Sutton, then Jennings. Jennings has a great strength of schedule through the playoffs. Then McLaurin, then Watson, Flowers, A.D. Mitchell. Yeah, that's where I stand about. Chad had the Seattle defense, planning to play them week 15. Not sure if I should drop Vele. Don't drop Jennings or 80 for the Kansas City. Oh, so sorry. You kind of touched on this earlier and I skipped over it. But yeah, I mean, Kansas City will be in play in week 16. I would just say, if you're not going to start Vele or 80 Mitchell, you can move on for one of them. Play Seattle week 15. Start Kansas City week 16. But yeah, don't drop Jawan Jennings. Chase Lex, good to see you. Hope you're doing well also. Thanks for popping in. Let's see. We got Kittle on bye week. Need to pick up a tight end and drop one. Higgins, DJ Moore, Benson, Evans, Jennings, Spears, or Charb. I would drop Spears. Yeah. I mean, before I saw Spears' name, I was going to say, like, Benson, like, is this even going to happen this year? We have no idea what's going on with that injury. A lot of murky injuries there in Arizona this year. I think that the training staff there has kind of failed some of these guys, including Kyler, including Marvin Harrison as well. Anyways, yeah, just Spears. I mean, we don't need to start a Titans running back this year, so you can move on there, bro. Bam Knight or Woody Marks. Wow. Hate the matchup for Bam Knight. Don't trust Woody Marks with a 10-foot pole. The Texans like to throw in the red zone. And like they still give touches to Nick Chubb. And like Marks has had good matchups and not shown up. Like he's like been a sit for me. But then Bam Knight gets the Rams, fourth fewest fantasy points to running backs. I wonder where they rank. Let's see. Yeah, over the last 4 weeks, they're a bottom 10 unit, the Rams, against running backs. Over the last 2 weeks, 19th, so just outside the bottom 12. I guess I go Bam Knight. Ray Gamer, always good to have you, bro. Hope you enjoyed the weekend too. Hampton, Pierce, Neal, Genty, Bam in the flex. Yeah, I would probably just go Genty. The volume is there, and the touches on the ground and through the air are there. But you could go Hampton, although his volume's unclear, so a little bit of risk. Parkinson, Barner are likely. I do like Barner. Like, I think he can always do something. I think I go Parkinson. He's kind of sneaky. It's a good matchup. He has a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. Arizona struggled against tight ends. Bottom 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed, but they have only given up 5 receiving touchdowns. And like we did talk about him last week against the Panthers, and it was a good matchup, and he didn't really do anything. Just 6 fantasy points, but he did have 5 targets. It's not like even the games where he was scoring, he wasn't getting a lot of overall volume. Let's see. Arizona over the last 4 weeks, 13th best against tight ends. Over the last 2 weeks, 15th best. So they've been a little bit better as of late. I would probably go Parkinson, but obviously the options here aren't great. Struggling on who to start between Lamar or Mahomes. If you're struggling, I would just look to matchup, and the matchup is a lot better for Lamar. I'm a Ravens fan. I know that Ravens Steelers games. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Texans defense serious. Yeah. I mean, if you're just looking at rankings, we take anything and everything out of it except for fantasy rankings on the year. The better matchup lies with Lamar. Kicker question. Let's go. What's up, Jonesy TV? Money Mac, Fairbairn or Bucker? I would start Fairbairn. I just kind of believe in him overall. But I mean, McPherson obviously coming off of a huge week last week. 24 points. And this is kind of a matchup that bodes well also. Because when I look at kickers, I do sometimes like look to bad, like good defenses, like bad matchups on paper, because then in theory, those defenses are stopping the opposing team from scoring more and maybe forcing them to kick more field goals. But if we look on the season, the Chiefs 10th against opposing kickers. So it's like not the greatest matchup there. The Texans are the best team. So I would say Bucker's out of the mix. And then the Steelers bottom 10. So I will say Fairbairn for a floor. If you want the upside, it lies with Money Mac. Vele or Burden. I think we hit this one. I think I'd go Burden. Vele, Burden, or Bum. I'm going to assume that's Bam night. Pick 2. Probably Vele and Burden. I just don't love this matchup for Bam night unless you're desperate. A.D. Mitchell or Aaron Jones. Gonna have to eat my Penix take from last year. Careful, the words there. I'll go Aaron Jones. Bengals in the hunt and Burrow's a beast. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. If this is in reference to will Burrow be a league winner, but still, I mean, the Bengals are in the hunt, but they're barely in the hunt. I'm not saying they're out. They need to win this week for sure. For sure. Yeah, and if the Bills win this week, they're almost entirely for sure in the playoffs. If they can beat the Bills, that'll really shift things. But even if they beat the Bills, they move to a 7% chance to make the playoffs, which will still be lower than the Chiefs. Even if the Chiefs lose, it'll be lower than the Steelers. Even if the Steelers lose, it'll be lower than the Texans, even if the Texans lose. But because of the non-success that the Steelers are having, and still the fact that the Ravens are 6-6, they are more in the mix than a team like the Dolphins, who actually have one more win than the Bengals. More in the mix than a team like the Jets or the Browns, who are also technically in the mix. So they are in the mix, but it's close. Boswell or Loop. Yeah, Loop has kind of come back to relevancy as he was early in the season and then kind of filtered out with the injury to Lamar. But this one's close because both these guys are like solid. But Boswell hasn't really been there. I'm going to go with the better. I'll go Loop. Bam or Hampton? I'll go Hampton. I do like Bam Knight, and I talked about Bam Knight last week at the end of the week a lot, actually. But it's a bad matchup, so I'll go Hampton. Chargers or Eagles? I'm leaning the Eagles right now. Coming off of a loss. Offensive line banged up for the Chargers. I'm going Eagles. Happy holidays to you, Jay Poole. Always happy to help you guys. Waller, Gadsden, Kincaid, or Jawan Johnson. It's not Gadsden for me. Like Gadsden, the production just hasn't been there. It's a bad matchup. I'll say Jawan Johnson for a floor, Kincaid for the upside. I don't mind rolling Kincaid out there, but it is risky. But the Bengals have been so bad against tight ends. And Waller's okay here too. Half PPR league, need to play 4. Nico Godwin, Wilson, or McLaurin. Well, that is floor, UNC kid. So let me know if you have a different question, if you need to play 3 or 2, or if there's a missing player. Because right now you got 4 players. If I had to bench one of these guys, it would probably still be Godwin. If you like Godwin, you could bench McLaurin. I like Terry, but the Vikings, tough matchup. Brenton Strange, Aaron Jones, or Devin Neal. Pick 2. I'd probably go Aaron Jones against the Commanders. I mean, I really try to not flex tight ends, but I think in this scenario, must-win game for both teams. Great matchup for Strange. You could go Strange. If you're worried about the weather, you could go Devin Neal. It's a reminder for anyone who hasn't paid attention to the weather. It is going to be a rainy game between the Jags and Colts, but I try not to overthink that. Walker, Neal, or Myers? I will go Jacoby Myers. Start 2, full PPR, Adams, Myers, Wilson. I go Adams and Myers. But that is close. I'm not benching Adams. That really shouldn't be a question. It should be start 1, Myers or Wilson. I mean, Adams has to be in your lineup. I think Myers is safer floor, but Wilson has maybe more risk, but more upside. C-Rod or Higgins? I mean, I do like C-Rod, but I'd probably go Higgins. Must-win game for both of those teams, and the Chiefs' secondary has been struggling the past couple of weeks, so I like Jaden Higgins this week. Commanders or Eagles? I mean, I don't love either this week. But the Vikings have given up the most fantasy points to defenses, so I'll go Commanders. I think the Eagles do have a really good opportunity here, though, and the Chargers have not been great against opposing defenses, so Eagles probably have the floor. The Commanders are risky because they are just a bad defense, but they have a lot of upside. Harvey at 35, rushing last week. Hall versus Harvey, RB2. Harvey, a sad day and come to Jesus moment. I mean, yeah, he wasn't entirely productive on the ground. But he did have 2 touchdowns, so I don't think any Harvey truther owners were too concerned. The previous week, I think, was a little bit more concerning because we have seen 7 touches to Jaleel McLaughlin in the last 2 games, and Tyler Badie 5 targets, 3 catches this past week. He does get in on some passing down situations, but I mean, Harvey hasn't been incredibly efficient running the football all season long. Good against Tennessee, good against Cincinnati, good against Dallas. These are not great run defenses. All Dallas has been better. That's it. But, it is interesting to your point that Dobbins was very efficient running the football when healthy. Only 3 games with 3.9 yards or less per carry. Every other game, 4.07 yards per carry or better. So, I mean, I won't necessarily completely disagree, but, Harvey has had 3 more catches the last 3 games, or last 2 games since he took over with no Dobbins. And I don't think anyone was expecting a ton out of him in week 11 against the Chiefs, but at least he found the end zone. And once again, it's a good matchup for him this week. I think he's going to have another solid week. And yards per carry definitely important here, but maybe not the telltale sign of doom and gloom per se. Man, Ohio State about to lose here. My guy, Cardinal Tate, touchdown today. Jeremiah Smith had a solid game too. So we have Alabama and Ohio State losing today. So both the underdogs winning. All right. Let's see. Jets or Miami defense this week? I would go Miami, but both are risky. Is Kincaid too risky? No, depending on options that you have, maybe. But he's playing the Bengals, so any tight end can score against the Bengals. Maybe that's the only risky thing here. Is we've seen a little bit of volume to Jackson Hawes this season, and Dawson Knox has gotten some involvement. It's kind of like Isaiah Likely had, his best, even though he had the fumble and everything. He ended up being the more productive fantasy tight end last week, and that's because any tight end can really show up against the Bengals. So there's that, and since he is coming off an injury, he's risky. So both of those elements aren't great. But he's an upside play. He's got the matchup. Does Bucky have a good game? Look good last week? Yeah, I like Bucky this week a lot. And, the Saints defense has been good. They're nothing to sneeze at. They're not awful. They're not great, but right there in the middle against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed, 16th overall. And then we look, I think they've been pretty solid. Yeah, the last 4 weeks, 13th against the position. The last 2 weeks, 17th. So once again, they're not bad. They're not great, but this is a must-win game for the Bucs this week, and they are at home. And I think Bucky's going to continue to see plenty of involvement. And really big that the Panthers. The Panthers won this past week, so yeah, the Bucs. It's really big that the Panthers have one more loss, but with the Bucs are ahead in the division. So even if the Bucs lose, they sit at a 72% chance of making the bye. Or excuse me, making the playoffs. The Panthers are on bye week this week. But yeah, it's still a big divisional matchup here for the Bucs. So they're going to come out here and try and put up some points. Point being. Speaking of Harvey, do I start him or Judkins? I would go. I do like Judkins, but I'm going to go Harvey. I'm in on Harvey this week. 2 are a Tyrod. I'm going to go Tyrod. Mark Andrews post-contract. Yeah, I do. I mean, it's a great matchup against the Steelers this week for Mark Andrews. And I have one of those feelings this could be something they just want to get Mark Andrews a touchdown because he signed that contract. So I do like Andrews this week. Playoffs. Should I go for any handcuffs? Chase Brown, Judkins, Bucky, Vidal, Jamar Chase, J-Mo, Buka, Higgins, Myers. Got Waller and Hurts. So what we're looking at: Pirine, Sampson, Rashad White, Sean Tucker. I think Kamani Vidal is a handcuff with Hampton back. So I think Pirine has the best standalone value. And we've seen that Rashad White or Sean Tucker will have fantasy value if Bucky misses time, but I don't think it's entirely crucial here. I give, 3 solid running backs here. Good enough wide receivers. You should be good here. I would not say it's a priority. Strange or Kincaid? Strange has the floor. Kincaid has the upside. That's the way you got to look at it. Once again, Strange will be playing in the wet rain for what it's worth. It looks like Kincaid is likely to play, in case you're wondering. But he will be playing through injuries, quote unquote. Pittman, BTJ, or Metcalf? I'm going to go Pittman. BTJ will have an opportunity here. It is a good matchup, but come on. Can't trust him. Metcalf, I mean, come on. Ceiling's just not there. Would you say that Harvey's touchdown dependent? Yeah, but like once again, he is getting the touchdowns based on the small sample size when the matchups are there. And he is getting slight involvement in the passing game. So I do like him. And once again, I've said this a couple of times on tonight's stream. The Raiders over the last 2 weeks, most touchdowns allowed to running backs and the 4th most fantasy points allowed to running backs. So it's a good spot. If Kincaid out, would you start Knox over Gadsden? No, I feel like it's too risky. I do. Like, I think if you were desperate, you could, but I don't envision a ton of upside. Let's look at last week. 5.8 fantasy points for Knox. Against the Steelers, you struggle against tight ends. On the field for 72% of snaps. Jackson Hawes on the field for 70% of snaps, but he only had 1 target, 1 catch. Kincaid is just a different type of like vertical threat where he can solicit volume in the passing attack that Knox and Hawes don't particularly see. And like, yeah, I mean, at least Gadsden. I don't know. I don't really love Gadsden this week. I won't lie to you. So I guess Knox still has the upside there, but that's just based on matchup. 1 kicker to decide your season. Win and you're in. Lose and you're out. Fairbairn, Boswell, Nevis, or Lutz. I would probably just start Fairbairn. I just think he's been good enough. Nevis is interesting. I feel like Lutz has been pretty solid this year too. And Boswell has been good, but he's been bad the past 2 weeks. I don't really trust the Steelers. I will go Fairbairn. Good floor, good upside. PPR, pick 1 to bench. Ladd, Neal, Hampton, DJ Moore. I think we hit this one earlier, but maybe not. I would start Ladd. I would start Hampton. I'll say Devin Neal has the floor, DJ Moore the upside. And I still think Devin Neal's kind of just like a safe play. Like he's in that range of like 10 to 12 fantasy points. I'm not even expecting a huge game out of him. But sometimes I'll just take like a safe flex option. But DJ Moore, like once again, the issue is like Luther Burden, Olamide Zacchaeus, Colston Loveland, maybe even Cole Kmet, both running backs. Like they're all going to get involvement, and they play that Packers defense. Like I'm not really envisioning this being like it has the chance to be in a high scoring game because the Bears defense not as strong. They're opportunistic, but they're not like great in terms of allowing touchdowns, right? Especially in terms of against receivers. So DJ Moore has some upside here, but the Packers defense is still very good. Just depends on how Chicago responds. So it's definitely it's close between these guys. Yeah, we haven't seen these two teams play this year yet. First matchup between the two in the division. Is Walker TD Vultures this season feel safe about Myers? I'm not exactly sure the question on this one. Oh, is this just an okay? So hold on. Because what the previous question was Walker, Neil, Myers. Yeah. I do like Walker. Like I think he's solid this week. I think he's actually going to be in the morning videos, a player I talk about. And but yeah, Charbonnet is going to get volume too. And Walker has more touches as of late, more snaps as of late. Charbonnet has 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Walker has 1. As a matter of fact, Walker has scored once since week 3. Yeah, you heard that right. Once since week 3 of the season. Charbonnet has scored 7 times in that stretch. So Walker doesn't have a lot of upside. I went into the week really liking Myers. The only thing concerning me slightly is once again it's going to be a rainy game. Will that impact things? We'll find out. But I like Myers. It's a good matchup. It's a big game for both teams. So I go Myers. Houston or Eagles defense. I'll go the Eagles by a hair. But I don't mind if you want to go the Texans at all. I just think the Eagles line up very well against the Chargers offensive line, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. And we could see a sloppy game from the Chargers with potential turnovers. And still, like the Chargers have not been good as of late. There's kind of like squeaking out some wins, but don't forget, like before the bye week, they got wrecked by Jacksonville. And still, I mean, Justin Herbert, an interception in every game except for one since week 7. 2 interceptions, 0, 1. Luckily, no fumbles, but the turnovers are there. And Herbert has 10 interceptions on the season. So he's thrown an interception in every game this year except for 4. So there is turnover potential. But yeah, I like the Texans defense as much as anyone every week. If Hampton doesn't play Vidal, I mean, Hampton is going to play. I mean, that's been Hampton's going to play. And in general, I like RJ Harvey more. Yeah, Hampton is playing. That's for sure. The question is, how much volume does he see, and do they still give touches to Vidal? We'll find out. But I would imagine if he's going to play, they're going to get him involved. All right, guys, we're at the bottom of the chat. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you guys get them in here. We'll start kind of wrapping things up the next 5 to 10 minutes. So make sure you guys get anything in here. Of course, you guys can go check out any of the content on the channel for the week and drop fantasy questions before kickoff tomorrow on any of the videos. And I will clear all the questions before kickoff tomorrow, or at least as many as I can, but I don't anticipate that I will miss any. So make sure you guys check out. We have plenty of content, and we'll have one more video dropping in the morning as well for you guys. So all is not lost. May out on bye. Knicks, Lawrence, Darnold, Brissett. All are very good streaming options here, Joe. I went into the week really liking Trevor Lawrence, but now the weather has me a little shaky. Still think he's a good option. I think Darnold's fine. Brissett is a start every week. But I do like Knicks. I like Knicks this week. I mean, yeah, these are all very solid options, man. The Raiders have been okay over the last 2 to 4 weeks against quarterbacks, and like generally they don't give up a ton of points against quarterbacks, but I like Knicks. But I don't think Knicks has a super high ceiling. I would probably just go Brissett. I know he plays the Rams, and I know that will make you feel a little queasy, but you know he's going to go out there and sling the football around. I mean, he is due for a bad game. He hasn't had a bad fantasy game, specifically fantasy, I should say. But I'd probably just start Jacoby Brissett, and he's probably worth rostering to end the season in case, God forbid, anything happens to Drake May, you know? All right. Thank you for the super chat, Pace Setter. Olave and Wilson need a flex. Etienne, Sutton, or Waddle. Go ahead and just let me know in the chat just to verify. Are you starting Olave and Wilson, and now you need a flex out of the three options? Or is this two questions, Olave or Wilson, and then you need a flex as well? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure. Okay, so you're starting Olave and Wilson. Word. Yeah, I would start those two guys. So Etienne, Sutton, Waddle. I mean, if you guys have followed the channel for past couple years, I'm just a Cortland Sutton guy. So like I would just be starting Cortland Sutton, and it is a good matchup for him against the Raiders. Fifth most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. We loved him last week. The Commanders are one spot ahead of the Raiders. The Raiders have actually been worse. And schematically, it is a good spot. The Raiders bottom 12 against wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. Over the last 2 weeks, they've been pretty good. Top 11, actually. But I still like this spot for Sutton. I would personally just start Sutton, but I definitely think that the other two players are in the mix here. And, you know, Waddle was pretty quiet this past week, and the Jets are kind of a weird team. They've given up the 10th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and like they haven't dropped off since they traded Sauce Gardner. I mean, over the last 4 weeks, top 10 against wide receivers. Over the last 2 weeks, top 5. They haven't played the best teams necessarily in the last 4 weeks, but so I think Waddle's fine, but does he have a tremendous amount of upside? Well, if he doesn't score, probably not. Then Etienne, a down week this past week, but the Titans have quietly been really good against running backs over the past month. He gets the Colts this week, which is not particularly a great matchup. 12th best against running backs on the season, but it's a big game. Whoever wins is going to be top of the division, but it will be a rainy game. Is that going to be good for the running backs or bad? Only time will tell. Will the rain really impact things? Time will tell once again. So I would have Sutton in my starting lineup, and I would start Olave and Wilson. But certainly worth the debate and questioning it overall, for sure. But yeah, I would start Sutton. The good news is you have good options no matter what, for sure. Andrew, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. Half PPR, Godwin or Debo? Well, we're definitely looking for touchdown upside in half PPR. And I don't know. The Saints have been quietly pretty good against wide receivers, 13th best. But the Vikings, first in the league in terms of fantasy points to wide receivers. They are a good team against wide receivers. They've only given up 8 touchdowns. That's tied for 4th best in the league. And Debo's going to see less defensive pressure now, of course, with Terry on the field. But, like, you know, you take away that big catch he had at the end of the game in week 13, that was nearly a touchdown, but, you know, it wasn't a touchdown. Then he didn't really do much last week, you know. And Terry is back. I mean, he hit 7 targets. We'll see Jaden Daniels back. How does that impact things? I mean, yeah, Godwin dropped the touchdown last week. If he hadn't dropped that touchdown, we'd probably be looking at Godwin as like a must-start player because he had 5 targets, 3 catches, 78 receiving yards, 10 fantasy points. If he caught the touchdown, well, you're looking at 17-ish fantasy points, 4 catches. And we know Mike Evans, McMillan not in the mix this week, so I wouldn't say it's a must-win game for the Bucs, but it's a big game for the Bucs. I'll go Godwin, but it could go either way. And once again, it's going to depend on who scores. Daniels, Knicks, and the brisket. I would probably just go JD5. Probably just go Jaden Daniels. But if you want to go Jacoby Brissett, I can't blame you. And I still think Knicks has a safe floor. Oh, I also got Daniel Jones. Yeah, I would probably just go JD5. You know, he's one of these players, like, you've held him this long or you picked him up and you waited. It's like, it's what you're waiting for. I don't love the matchup against the Vikings. I do think no matter what happens, if you guys own JD5, whether you held him or you picked him up, if he doesn't have a great game this week, don't panic, because the playoff schedule is really, really strong, and he should be able to perform through the fantasy playoffs, getting the Giants, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. And I've been a Commanders fan for a long time, and I will tell you these NFC East games, especially the end of the season, everything goes out the window. I don't know what it is. And that can happen with any divisional game, but I'm telling you, in the NFC East, it might be worse than any other division. All right, guys, looks like we're all caught up here. We're about at the 2-hour mark, which is usually where I about wrap things up. So that should just about do it for the stream. Like I said, make sure you guys go check out, any of the videos on the channel that you haven't done so already on the week. And if you guys need any further help over the next 24 hours, you can drop a comment on any of the videos, and I will get back to you before kickoff, or most of you guys, as many of you guys as I can. And so not all is lost. Of course, if you guys aren't part of the Discord, you can also join the Discord, completely free to do so. And you can ask questions to the community on there as well. I'm going to drop my most recent Dynasty video for you guys out there who play Dynasty Fantasy Football. It's at the bottom of the chat. And or anyone interested in starting to play Dynasty Football, you guys can check out my Dynasty content with the guys from Dynasty Endgame over on, or from Fantasy Endgame over on the Dynasty Endgame channel. But yeah, lots of way to get in contact over the next 24 hours if you guys need anything else as well. And as always, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe on the way out. Sport Dog, what's up? Warren, Vidal, Rodriguez, Marks need 2. I would go Jalen Warren and Rodriguez. Worried about Vidal's volume with Hampton coming back, and I don't trust Woody Marks, unfortunately. So, all right, guys, great stream tonight. Thank you guys for allowing me to answer your fantasy questions. And thank you guys, of course, for hanging out, joining the stream, and talking some fantasy football as always. So glad I got to a lot of you guys. I know it's a big week. Good luck to everybody. And once again, pull in from as many resources as you can, get as many perspectives as you can between this week and all the way through week 17. I'm sure myself and every other content creator that you guys come in touch with is doing as much research and the best they can to help you guys win every week. But at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut. You never know what's going to happen. It takes a lot of luck, and we are going to see some bad, matchups and disappointment happen when we don't expect it. It's just the way that it works in fantasy football. So definitely wishing you guys luck, and I appreciate you guys letting me answer your fantasy questions, but I will get some of them wrong. It happens all season long, and it feels worse in the fantasy playoffs. So bear that in mind. And I certainly hope that you guys kill it this weekend in all your matchups and kill it through the fantasy playoffs. Gob, have a great weekend. Blazin, have a great weekend. I will be back on it next Saturday. I'll be on every Saturday for the rest of the year, so don't worry, guys. And we'll have our regular scheduled content coming out, and we will have a video dropping in the morning, so make sure you guys check it out. And playoffs are here, baby. So good luck to everybody. Hope you guys kill it this week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch, and peace.